There is a building in the center of Moscow that made thousands of people disappear overnight. Even though its Baroque style and yellow paint look harmless, the horrifying secrets inside could rattle even the toughest men. It sits on Lubyanka Square, one of the busiest intersections in the capital, surrounded by department stores and metro stations and the ordinary rush of city life. And yet for more than a century, this building has carried a weight that no architecture can disguise. The story begins not with spies or secret police, but with insurance. In 1898, the All-Russia Insurance Company commissions an imposing headquarters on what is then called Lubyanka Square. The architect delivers exactly what a prosperous firm at the turn of the century demands: thick walls, generous floor plans, deep basements designed for the secure storage of records and valuables. It is a building meant to project trustworthiness. No one involved in its construction could have imagined the purpose those deep basements would eventually serve. For 2 decades, the building hums with the unremarkable business of actuarial tables and policy documents. Then, revolution tears Russia apart. The Tsar abdicates. The Bolsheviks seize power. And in December 1917, Vladimir Lenin signs into existence a new organization tasked with defending the revolution against its enemies. They call it the All-Russian Extraordinary Commission for Combating Counter-Revolution and Sabotage. Its Russian acronym is shorter and far easier to whisper in fear: the Cheka. By March 1918, the Cheka needs a headquarters, and the recently vacated insurance building on Lubyanka Square fits perfectly. The irony is almost too neat. A house built to manage risk becomes a house that manufactures it. Felix Dzerzhinsky, the Cheka's first chairman, a gaunt Polish aristocrat turned fanatical revolutionary, moves his operation inside. The offices that once processed claims now process denunciations. The basements that once held filing cabinets are converted, room by room, into holding cells. What happens inside those walls during the early Soviet years is difficult to reconstruct with precision, because almost all records are voided or kept secret. But fragments survive in memoirs smuggled abroad, in the testimonies of the few who emerged in the archives briefly opened after the Soviet collapse. Prisoners describe being brought through a rear courtyard, stripped of belts and shoelaces, led down narrow corridors lit by bare bulbs. The cells are small. Some are designed for isolation, others are packed far beyond capacity. A deliberate cruelty. Dozens of bodies pressed together in a space meant for 2, unable to sit, barely able to breathe. Interrogations take place at night. Always at night. The logic is psychological as much as practical. Sleep deprivation breaks resistance faster than almost anything else. Prisoners are marched upstairs to offices where investigators work in shifts, asking the same questions for hours, for days, for weeks. Confessions are the currency of this system, and they are extracted with patience, with threats, with violence, and sometimes with the simple, unbearable weight of exhaustion. Sign this paper, admit to this crime, name your accomplices. The machine requires names and names it receives. Through the 1920s and 1930s, the organization changes its name repeatedly, from Cheka to GPU to OGPU to NKVD, but the address doesn't change, and neither does the function. Under Stalin, the apparatus of state terror reaches industrial scale. The Great Purge of 1936 to 1938 sends millions into the labor camps of the Gulag, and Lubyanka is the processing center for many of the most prominent victims. Old Bolsheviks who fought alongside Lenin, military commanders who won the Civil War, scientists, poets, diplomats. They arrive at night in black cars and vanish behind the yellow walls. Among those walls, some of the 20th century's most significant lives reach their lowest point. The writer Isaac Babel, whose stories of Odessa and the Red Cavalry had made him one of Russia's most celebrated literary voices, is brought here in 1939. He is interrogated, forced to confess to espionage he never committed, and later shot dead. The poet Osip Mandelstam passes through on his way to the camps, his crime a 16-line poem mocking Stalin. The filmmaker Vsevolod Meyerhold, the geneticist Nikolai Vavilov. The list stretches on, a roll call of brilliance fed into a bureaucratic machine that reduces human beings to case numbers in manila folders. It is not only Soviet citizens who disappear into Lubyanka. In January 1945, the Swedish diplomat Raoul Wallenberg, who had personally saved tens of thousands of Hungarian Jews from the Holocaust by issuing them protective passports, is detained by Soviet forces in Budapest. He is brought to Moscow. Soviet authorities later claim he died of a heart attack in Lubyanka's prison in 1947. But the circumstances remain murky, contested, wrapped in the kind of deliberate ambiguity at which this institution excels. Wallenberg's family spent decades searching for answers. After Stalin's death in 1953, the secret police is reorganized once more and given the name the world will remember longest, the KGB, the Committee for State Security. Lubyanka remains its headquarters. The overt mass terror of the Stalin years recedes, but the building's purpose does not fundamentally change. It adapts. Dissidents replace counter-revolutionaries as the primary targets. The methods grow more refined: psychiatric hospitals, professional exile, character assassination, but Lubyanka's interrogation rooms remain in use. The poet and future Nobel laureate Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who spent years in the Gulag, later writes that the very word Lubyanka is enough to make a Russian shiver. Outside, on the square, power asserts itself in bronze. In 1958, a massive statue of Felix Dzerzhinsky is erected in front of the building. Iron Felix, they call him, standing tall in his long military coat, gazing down the avenue with the expression of a man who has never doubted a single decision. The statue becomes one of the most recognizable symbols of Soviet authority and of the fear that authority cultivates. For decades, Muscovites hurry past it on their way to the Detsky Mir children's department store across the square, an accidental juxtaposition so grotesque it hardly needs commentary. Toys on one side, terror on the other. The building itself expands over the decades. A new wing is added in the 1940s and 1930s, designed in the heavier Stalinist style, nearly doubling the structure's footprint. The yellow facade is maintained, the ornamental details preserved, but the scale grows more imposing. From certain angles, the building seems to consume the entire block. Then, in August 1991, the world turns upside down. A failed coup against Mikhail Gorbachev triggers the final unraveling of the Soviet Union. On the night of August 22nd, crowds surge into Lubyanka Square. A crane is brought in. Ropes are fastened around the statue of Dzerzhinsky. And as thousands watch and cheer, Iron Felix is lifted from his pedestal and swung through the air, dangling like a puppet whose strings have been cut. The moment is broadcast around the world. It feels, for a brief and intoxicating instant, like the end of something permanent. But buildings are harder to topple than statues. The KGB is dissolved, renamed, restructured, and its successor, the Federal Security Service, the FSB, moves back into Lubyanka. The same address, the same yellow walls. The offices are renovated, modern technology replaces the old equipment, but the institutional memory persists, encoded in the corridors, in the layout of the basement levels, in the very culture of an organization that has never fully reckoned with what took place inside its headquarters. The building remains operational, and it remains, in a very real sense, off-limits to public scrutiny. In 1990, on the small green space just across from the building, a different kind of monument appears. It is a rough boulder of granite brought from the Solzhenitsyn Islands in the White Sea, site of one of the first and most notorious camps of the Gulag. The Solzhenitsyn stone is placed here deliberately, facing Lubyanka, a memorial to the victims of political repression. It is modest, almost raw, a jagged piece of the earth itself set against the polished facade of state power. Every year on October 29th, people gather here to read aloud the names of those who were executed during the terror. The line sometimes stretches around the block. The names take hours to recite. This ritual of remembrance exists in tension with the building that stands just meters away. Modern Moscow has not resolved that tension and perhaps cannot. The FSB headquarters is no museum. There are no plaques on its exterior listing the prisoners who suffered inside. There is no public archive where families can trace the final hours of those who disappeared. The building functions as it has always functioned, in deliberate obscurity. Its power lies partly in what is known and partly in what is not, in the vast gray territory between official statement and lived experience, where rumor and record blur into something that resists easy narrative, What makes Lubyanka extraordinary is not its architecture, nor even the specific horrors that occurred within it, though those are staggering in their scale. It is the duration. Over 100 years, through Tsarist collapse, revolution, civil war, world war, Cold War, and the uncertain present, one building has served continuously as the seat of state surveillance and coercion. Regimes change, names change. The address does not. And that continuity says something profound about the relationship between a state and the fear it administers, that the infrastructure of control, once built, is almost impossible to dismantle. And it stands there still, on its busy square, in its coat of yellow paint, looking for all the world like just another government office. Which, in the end, may be the most frightening thing about it.